Welcome to the Educating Kids and Connecting Families podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to provide your family with encouragement, inspiration, and connection. I'll equip you with resources and expert advice to help you effectively educate your kids in a fun and meaningful way. If you value education, quality family moments, and community, you're in the right spot. We'll discuss all things parenthood, education, homeschool, ways to balance it all, and so much more. Join us each week as we empower you to raise kind, confident, and independent kids while building community and connection. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 51 of Educating Kids and Connecting Families. I'm your host, Christine Furman, and today I have a very special guest with me. Denise Stifler and I go way back, meeting at a vendor event, probably around this time of year, right? You said around like 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow, that is crazy. So it has definitely been a while. And during this time, we've been able to watch our kids grow up. We've witnessed some huge pivots in our lives and have been able to support and encourage each other through it all. Well, Denise, I am so glad that you are here with us today.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, thank you for joining. It really is such a pleasure because you are going to bring so much to the table today. And I'm so excited for our listeners just to really soak up this information and this knowledge that you're going to share with us today. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Denise. So Denise is the founder of More Than This Life Coaching, where she helps people identify their stuck stories and step into their most fulfilling lives. Like, wow, Denise, this is amazing. I love this all so much. She's also the co-host of From Rundown to Renewed podcast, where women are encouraged through their faith journey to transform from run down to renewed. Denise, I just want to say I love watching your transformation and watching all of these just come to life. All of the coaching, the podcast, it's just been so awesome to see this for you.
Thank you. It's been an incredible journey. It really has.
Yes. Do you want to add anything else about yourself, about what you are doing, about your podcast? You want to share any little nuggets with our guests?
It's all in there, right? Like, I think what really spurred me onto life coaching is I just realized through a lot of my own transformation, a lot of my healing, that there were so many people that are just stuck, right? And you don't even realize it. We have these narratives that we tell ourselves, and a lot of times they're often grown out of just lies that we've believed, that we've been told, and they just become our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even realize what you're living in and how you're operating out of just an unfulfilled state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where More Than This Life Coaching was born. I used to be in ministry, so I love working with people and just wanted to really expand that. And then the podcast was also created this year as well. My co-host MacKenzie and I just saw a lot of women deeply, deeply run down. And that's where the title came from Rundown to Renewed. And it's been a really amazing journey of just encouraging and equipping women. We do women's conferences as well. So we just have a whole lot of just encouragement, hope, faith, fulfillment, ready to help other women and men too through my coaching step into. Yeah.
I love that all so, so much. And it's definitely so needed. We definitely are in this time where you could feel alone, during that transformation time or during that rundown time where you are looking at this like huge pivot in your life and you're like, I don't know even who to turn to, So what an awesome, gift that you guys are giving to people, women and even men to say, you know what, I'm here for you. I'm going to encourage you through this difficult time and help, get you onto the other side. Because that is really what we want to see for people. We want people, that are going through these difficult times to come out on top and be able to, live a fulfilled life. So I love that so, so much, Denise.
Yeah, thank you. It's fulfilling for me. I actually had a call with a client and it was right before one of my small groups at my church. And so I did the session at one of the offices in church. And then I like went right after because it was during the time. And I walked into small group and they're like, Denise, you look so like empowered and like good. And I said, I love this. Like it was just so rewarding. And to hear that people could kind of see that from me was really empowering as well.
It really is. I mean, and that right there is when you know you have stepped into God's calling for your life.
Yes.
It's like when you can walk away from helping someone else and you feel empowered, you never feel drained, you don't feel, exhausted. You're like, oh my gosh, I did something good. I am helping someone achieve their goals. It really is such an empowering feeling. So I love that for you so much.
Thank you. It's amazing just watching people break chains and have these realizations, and it's the most rewarding work. It
I
really,
love that.
really is. Yeah.
I love that. Well, what we're going to talk about today, I just want to ask our listeners, like, have you ever felt like you were running on E, right? Where everyone wants you, everyone needs you. I know even myself, my kids want me, my husband needs me. I need to do things for work. I have all these outside commitments, right? Feel like we're running on E. When is it our time to get rest? When is it our time to catch our breath, and reset? Well, today, Denise and I, we're going to dive into this topic about setting boundaries. Right now, we're going to talk about around the holidays specifically, but really a lot of these topics and concepts can really be used throughout the whole year. But we're going to really focus a lot on the holidays because that's where we're at, the holiday season right now. And I just really think you guys are going to have some great takeaways. And I'm so excited because Denise and I, when we were talking off air, I mean, we were just right on the same page. Every
Mhm.
time we would say something, I was like, yes, yes, that's totally what how I feel about this. And so, guys, I'm so excited. Buckle up. This is going to be a great episode and really going to, again, empower you to start setting these boundaries and, being able to help you in that state because maybe it's difficult. It is something that can be a difficult thing to get started. And how do I do this? Where do I even start to set boundaries for myself? Right. Because I've always done X, Y, and Z. I've always been the one to do this. I've always done that. I'm always this person. Right. But how do we start taking back our time, taking back ourselves?
Yeah.
Because if not,
Mm.
we literally are going to just continue to be run down.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I thought of as you were saying all that is like initially setting boundaries. That especially if A, you haven't done it, and B, you are a people pleaser, 'cause you
Yes.
will feel so out of yourself. You will feel very at first, not the whole time, right? This is the
Mhm.
part you have to push through. But odds are high you will feel a little bit icky because you're not used to saying no. You're not used to stating your needs. You're not used to kind of prioritizing and figuring out what you need, what you want, what your limits are, and then voicing all of those things, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times we don't even say those things to ourselves because
Right.
boundaries can feel selfish, I think, to a lot of people, not
Yes.
everybody. But
Yes.
but you are initially setting them in your day to day, they can feel selfish because you're telling people no. And you start to prioritize yourself and you start to learn your limits and those types of things. And then the focus is on you, and my life is everybody else. My life is my kids, my life is my spouse, my life is my community, my friends, my church, my whatever you're committed to. And you overcommit,
Mhm.
you overextend yourself. And then it's almost as if boundaries are, well, one, you don't have them at the moment, but then
Right.
like they are absolutely necessary or you will be on E forever.
Yeah.
And that isn't who we want to show up as.
Right.
I don't want to show up as the E version of myself. Sometimes it's a reality of life, but it doesn't have to be in a long
Right.
term state. And that's why boundaries are so important because it helps you. Again, we're going back to these like words of empowerment and fulfillment. Like it is going to help you be more empowered. It's going to help you be more fulfilled as yourself because you're not
Yes.
sending yourself to things that you don't even want to do or people you don't even want to serve.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so true, and that people pleaser comes out, where it's like, well, I just want to do this for other people. Right. But then we are just wrecking ourselves. We could be wrecking our families. Like, what's the cost?
Yes. Yes. That is a perfect question to ask yourself as you're setting boundaries is what's the cost if I don't set this boundary? That is the
Mhm.
perfect, I have chills. That is the perfect question to ask because a lot of times we don't. It's like, oh, I can take one more phone call. I can take one more meeting. I can take one more. Well, how many one mores can you take until it costs you more time with your kids? Like the
Yes.
things that you really prioritize. And so I think that's like step one in setting boundaries is knowing what your priorities are, like getting very, very clear about those things.
Mhm.
And then looking at your calendar and how are you spending your time? And
Yes.
are those priorities in alignment with how you spend your time?
I love that. And I just heard this recently. Someone said about their calendar, and they said, I leave room for purple area. And I was like, oh, what's that? And it was like a gap, you know? So you're giving yourself that time. So we don't have one event right up next to the others. And trust me, sometimes it happens. Tomorrow, I'm running from one event right to my daughter's dance performance. It does happen. But if there's a way that we can prevent that from happening, is it saying, you know what? I can't do this event because I have my daughter's dance performance, or I need to leave this event early because of this. And I need to go home and reset myself. So
Mhm.
I really love that, like looking for that purple area of where we can add that buffer time,
Yeah.
that reset time.
And by giving herself that gap, she can then show up to these other things more fully,
Yes.
and
Your
not
full self.
as her full self. And again, you're giving your time to the things that you prioritize.
Yep. Exactly.
You're letting that. And I love that. Yeah, that's such a great example because we all
Mhm.
need that. We all need downtime. We all need
Yes.
rest, right? It's a non-negotiable. And if you're not taking it, your body will eventually take it for you.
Yes.
you know,
Exactly.
so why not avoid that as
And
much as you can?
yes.
Why not avoid the sickness and the overwhelm and the exhaustion as much as you can and start figuring out what your boundaries are.
Yes. And you know what I've been really leaning into too and learning more about is just like your body holds on to these emotions,
Yes, it does.
and then that's going to run you down. I mean, I'm sure you talk about this, because if you are constantly go, 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 your body is feeling that. Your nervous system is off, it's off kilter. And it is eventually going to just say, you need to stop,
Yeah.
you know, and
Mhm.
whatever cost that's going to be. Again, now you've overextended yourself and now you are forced to take a break when you probably had 10 other commitments that you needed to do during that time. And leaning into our bodies too. I talk about this a lot on the show is like leaning into our cycles too,
Yeah.
because yesterday was like I ran all day. And then I sat down and I was like, I'm done. I am tired. I'm going to bed early. And then I even got up early, but I needed to lay back down. Like I had to lean into my body, knowing that I had a full day today and know that I had to give my body the rest that it needed because I wasn't going to perform my full self. And, sometimes just looking at that and saying, you know what, can I take a quick break here? Can I take an extra hour of sleep to prepare my body?
Mhm.
And one of the other things I just want to quickly add this on, and then you can share your thoughts, Denise. But someone asked me just recently and said, when are you resting, Christine? And I said, well, I rested all weekend because I fell. They're like, no, no, no. Like, when are you scheduling your rest in? Because you need that time. So that is definitely something to schedule in as well.
Yes. And by you doing that, you showed yourself, hey, I love myself enough to know that I'm going to be running and tomorrow's going to be really busy. So my body needs this, my mind needs this rest. And because you did that, you were able to show up and I'm assuming, hoping that you felt more like yourself today, right?
Mhm.
And your
Yeah.
schedule even got a little off kilter, but you didn't sound annoyed about it when we talked about it. You weren't frustrated. It was like, oh, yeah, this happened, right? But if you wouldn't have taken that time to rest yesterday, I'm curious if you would have been annoyed by that like half hour glitch in your day.
Yeah.
right?
That's true.
It's the beauty of setting these boundaries is, especially like I just want a word of, I don't want to say caution, but just for those of you that are starting out and it feels a little wonky, like these are the results that you will have when you practice your boundaries, when you start, because I mean, I'm speak for you to a degree on this. Like I know setting boundaries was not an easy thing for you to
Right.
start doing, you know, and
Right.
for me too. I mean, it was ugly for a bit there because it was just so challenging, and you feel like you're just doing. And again, I know this isn't true for everyone, but when you're a people pleaser, this comes up a lot where you just feel like you're just doing something wrong because
Yeah.
you're not doing, and I have a client who we've talked about this multiple times, and her like quote unquote homework that I've given her after multiple sessions has been, I'm just going to need you to rest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need you to rest, and I'm going to need you to pay attention to what comes up for you in your thought life when you're resting,
Yes.
because she ties a lot of her self-worth into what she does.
Yes. I feel that, Denise, so much, because it's like if I do rest, I should be doing so many other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should
Mm-hmm.
be, right? And I'm
Yeah.
actually going to be speaking about this, the shoulds coming up in a challenge that you and I are doing, because those get into our head that, society has put all of these shoulds, all of these expectations for general life, right? But it doesn't suit you individually, right?
Yeah.
What are the things that you need to do in your family for you and your family, right? So that is definitely something where I could be laying down, and I'm better at it now, of course. It does take practice, but I even grew up and it was like rest was not really a thing. If you were resting, what could you be doing?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something you could be working on, right? And so I know that just continued to transfer into my adult life, and then I had to just start resting
Mm-hmm.
and listen to my body and say, oh my gosh, I should be doing this. No, I need to rest right now. And the other thing about that is rest does not have to look like taking a nap. You know, rest could be
Man.
what is serving you, or what is going to fill your cup up, right? Like one thing that I started thinking of is like sitting down and doing a puzzle with my kids and my family. I was resting. I was
Yes.
not doing something else. I was resting my mind, clearing my mind, and I was able to come back to my work and be more focused. So
Yeah.
can you share a few other ways that we could be resting but not like actually napping, because that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like, I'm going to
Yeah.
go take a nap.
So I really love that example. I feel very calm when I'm doing puzzles too. I enjoy it. And I have my phone right here next to me, right? And there's so much itch, especially like we're just constantly, like we're always going for it, right?
Yes.
But when I'm doing a puzzle, like I don't even know where my phone is. Like
Yep.
I don't care who's texting me.
Yep.
Like I love you, but I'm good. Like. And so things that, playing a game,
Mhm.
I think it's going to be different for everybody, right? But what helps calm you?
Yep. Is it a
So
bubble? Is it a bubble bath? Is it reading your favorite book? And it changes,
yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
there are certain times when I'm like, okay, I'm going to rest, but I don't want to read. I really need to
That's balance.
just let my brain just really rest, and I don't want to do anything at that point. But then there are other times when I do need a break and I need some rest. And sure, I could pick up my book for 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. I really love personal development books and,
Mhm.
faith books and things like that. But I started this year. I remember sitting at a meeting and we were kind of talking over our 2024 goals. And one of the things that I said was, I really just want to read more like fun books. And I've
Yes.
been doing that more in the last few years, but I started reading just like books for enjoyment before I fell asleep. And I've
Mhm.
kept it all year, and it's been so fun. And I sleep really well because I'm not staring at a screen right before I fall asleep.
Yes.
Your brain needs that time, right? I mean, we could
Mhm.
go into all the psychological and physical reasons why we should put our phones away like an hour before we go to bed.
Yes.
So I think just asking yourself, what's something that helps you be calm
Mhm.
and you find enjoyment in? And that could be reading a book, that could be watching a movie, what could be watching, a lot of people in the last like month, especially with like just all the stress of so many different things, people have gone back to their comfort shows because it's familiar.
Yes.
That's like a very biological thing too. Like because it's familiar, it just brings this comfort. So, what's your favorite comfort show? Or,
Yes.
do you like to bake? Do you like to cook? Some people find cleaning relaxing.
I'll tell you,
More power to you.
I think if we put our phones away, right? It's like, what can we do that is like, we're focused on that thing, right? So cleaning, I wouldn't necessarily say it's my thing of rest, right? But
Right.
I helped my sister move. And it was like my phone was in the other room and I was focused on that task, right? So it was a break. It was a reset from all of the other things that I normally do. And I actually felt like I was exhausted by the end of the day, each day, but I felt very like fulfilled doing it, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
because it was like I'm doing a task, I'm completing this job, and nothing else is distracting me right now, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that is something too, is like a boundary with our phones
Yeah.
because people can reach us. And I've talked about this many different times, but people can reach us multiple ways at any second of the day from all over the world.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
wild.
that's a conversation I have with my kids.
Hmm.
I could be having 5 different conversations on my phone and no one even knows it, but my brain knows it. And then
Hmm.
they ask me a question and I'm going to snap
Yeah.
because I am not focused on them. My priority was my phone and the conversations. And I think this leads into our next point is like communicating clearly
Mhm.
with one, what we're doing. So then people know what we're doing. But two, how are we building these breaks and this rest into our life and letting everyone know what it is that we actually need at that
Mhm.
moment? You
Yeah.
know, like I need 5 minutes to answer these calls and then I will be able to respond to you and play with you or whatever that looks like, you know?
And you know what that does is it actually teaches, if you're communicating these things with your kids, it actually teaches them one about boundaries, but it also teaches them to advocate for themselves. Like my youngest had a bit of a moment, couple, I don't
They
know,
all do.
ago. They all do. We all do. Come on.
Yes.
Not just our kids, okay?
Yep.
Especially this time of year.
Right.
And so she wasn't having life. She just wasn't. And I let her do what she needed to do. And she even said to me, "Mom, I just need a minute." And she did. She went
That's
into the
awesome.
bathroom and closed the door. And then she came up to me. And after she like kind of did what she needed to do for herself, because in those moments, and this is a good boundary thing to learn with your kids and to teach them is to say what they need. And
Mhm.
in that moment, she's like, "I need a minute."
Yeah.
And I think as moms, we just want to go in and fix it.
Yes.
And that's so real. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think sometimes you can't give your kids a minute because maybe they're like going to do something really stupid.
Right.
I'm not talking about those instances here. But I think in the times where they're like, I need X, Y, and Z. And even if you're like, I know, but I want to, can I step in? Because I have all the answers. Like, this is such a good thing for them to learn.
Yeah.
And like going back to that story, like, so when she kind of came out of the bathroom, she looks at me and she goes, "Mom, I think it would be really helpful." And this is so cute. It's such a 7-year-old. But she said, "I think it would be nice if we could watch 2 episodes of Bluey, right? Bluey episodes are 7 minutes long." And she, I think just being able to watch Bluey and laugh, I'll be able to like get myself completely calm and be able to go to sleep.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
I love that so much.
Like
Number
that's yes, go ahead.
Just number one, she was able to advocate for herself, like you said. Number two, you have given her those strategies, right? And I think that's an important part of that boundary making is
Yeah.
like, what are the things that we need to do or what can we do to calm ourselves down? Like my kids, I remember them saying one time I was really frustrated. This was years ago. And they were like, Mom, let me put on some music for you because they knew that that would boost my mood, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it's like just clearly communicating with our kids,
Yes.
one, how we're feeling, you know? We
Yeah.
need to be just talking to them. Right now, I'm just frustrated. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad. I'm just frustrated with this task at hand, you
Yes.
know? And I just need a moment. But by us speaking those things out loud,
Mhm.
it's teaching them, you know, they're watching everything that we do. and they're able then to say and to, be able to communicate themselves what they need because you have shown them.
Yeah. And it was really, I remember sharing it with a mom friend of mine, and she goes, Denise, like, she totally just advocated for herself. Like, that's such a power move. Because here's the deal, like, our kids are watching us, right? And you just said that. And so, what are we showing them?
Hmm.
And do you, and this is, kind of makes my stomach hurt to ask, but I think it's an important question. Like, are you setting an example for your kids to be completely run down when they're parents, when they're grown-ups? Like, is that going to be the norm? Because you struggled to really, and I say this like so kindly, so kind,
Hmm.
but because you struggled to kind of set those boundary standards, what version of you are they getting? Because
Yeah.
that's what they're going to carry into their lives too.
Yep.
And you see that. I mean, that's just generational. That's it's just the way
Yeah.
it really is. And I'm not saying people don't break cycles. They clearly do, but
Right.
but we're talking about like us today and our children today. What are we doing to
Yep.
set them up for success? Because they're going to need to advocate for themselves. And we're not raising kids, we're raising adults.
Hmm.
So who are they going to be as adults?
That's such a good point. They are children now, but we are raising them to be, my phrase is kind, independent, confident kids, but also they are going to be adults,
Right.
and how are we treating them? How are we responding and interacting? And what are they seeing? Because whatever they're seeing, they are going to respond and react to
Yeah.
So I think that is so huge for sure.
And I think like when you tie that into the holidays, right? What are your holiday memories of your kids going to be like? Like, what are they going to remember?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
this is where boundaries are so important because, again, it goes back to who we are as parents.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that my mom and dad were stressed at Christmas at times. I don't doubt that. But we didn't do all the things all the time, but we
And
were
I'm
busy.
not sure they had all the things like they do now,
And that's
right?
what's different about, and maybe that's why they were less stressed than we
Right.
are.
Exactly. I mean, my
Less,
husband constantly is like, take me back to the 90s, And I think
less
that's kind of our generation is like, it was a good time because
time.
it was before the internet, Like, let's be real here. The internet has been so wonderful, and we are able to do this podcast, two different states, So it has its benefits, but also what has it done to us as a society? And then leaning into even the financial aspect of that, what kind of financial stress did the holidays put on our parents? Does it put on ourselves,
Yeah.
right? And I think that goes back to those boundaries as well too, where we need to be expressing that and we need to not be embarrassed about that and say, I'm going to buy presents for everyone. No, but are you going to go in debt? You mentioned that earlier. Are you
Hmm.
going to go in
Hmm.
debt over Christmas? Like, I'm going to make sure that my kids have the top toys and there are 1,000 presents under the tree. Well, who's that for? Is
Right.
that for the show of it all? To say, well, I can buy my child the top gaming system or the latest toy. When I know my parents did their best to make sure that we got our top things on our list, right? And I know that we're going to do what we can for our kids,
Yeah.
but maybe we don't do things for the neighbors. Maybe we don't do things for other people and we just clearly communicate that. And here's the thing too. I talked about this on the last episode is it doesn't have to be a gift that we buy. It could be something that you bake and there is your gift to someone,
Yes. Yes.
you know?
This goes back to kind of like, what are your priorities? Just like that shifts all the way back to that, which we talked about early on, and what is your priority? Like,
Yeah.
and what kind of, when you're communicating your boundaries to people over the holidays, because I think this is, when we were chatting pre-podcast recording, we talked about, our families being so amazing and generous and just asking, hey, what do the kids want? What do the kids need?
Right.
And I love that question. And it stresses me out at the same time
Hmm.
because
Right.
I have to come up with another list I have to do. And so I started thinking, okay, what is the way that I can do this in a way that still gives people ideas, but lessens my stress.
Hmm.
Like, okay, I'm going to make a wish list and I'm going to make it one link and I'm going to send it to everybody.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. And then, second of all, I'm going to tell people I'm so grateful. And I obviously want my kids to open presents on
Right.
Christmas. And I know that you want to give that. I don't want to take that away from you. And I'm not trying to take that away from you. However, I am so much more of like a let's do experiences type of thing.
Yes.
I'm here for all of the experience presents. So could you buy us a pass to
Yes.
our favorite, petting zoo or the zoo, or, maybe we want to go to a couple plays. Could you buy us tickets to the next play coming into town? Because that's where the memories are being created. At least
Yes.
for me, that's like a priority for me. So those
Hmm.
are things that I've gotten good at communicating. And I think sometimes, especially when you're like new to boundaries, you almost feel like you're being defensive. You have to be on the defense a little bit,
Yeah.
and it's not like people that you're communicating with don't like you or don't even love you. Like they love you and they care about you, but because you're not used to saying like, this is what I need and this is what I don't want at all, you know?
Yes.
So using like I statements, this is what I would like to see happen. This is what I need. My parents were being very thoughtful over some things that were kind of hard last Christmas season. And they threw out an idea, and it was a great idea, but it just wasn't one that I felt like
Would
would be
serve you.
the best thing.
Yeah.
And I said, I love this idea and I'm so grateful. And I think we're just going to wait and we're going to do it a little differently a couple days after Christmas. And they were fine. And a year prior to that, I probably would have like paced my house trying to make such a statement to people that love me. But it's
Yes.
that internal battle, right? And so that's where using I statements is really powerful because then you're not putting it on anybody else.
I love that
You
so
know,
much.
just saying, this is what I need. This is what works for me right now. And just state how grateful you are. Like if you're turning something down,
Hmm.
you don't have to be mean about it and you don't have to be
Right.
defensive about it. That might be your knee jerk reaction because you want to avoid any kind of conflict and you're nervous about it. But, be gentle and be thankful and share those things and then share, but I really need this instead.
Yeah.
This would probably work better for us this year. And here's the deal, like every holiday season is different for
Yeah.
every from year to year. One year you
Hmm.
could be really financially awesome and the next year you could be financially strapped. So your needs are
Yep.
different. But as you practice these things, it gets easier to communicate with the people that you love. This is what we're doing. Christmas cards. Maybe you could send them a year ago. Maybe you don't have the energy to send them this year. Who cares? It's okay.
Yep.
Why are we putting so much stress on ourselves to do all of the things? And listen, if you are in all the things, people, and you can operate in all the things, like I applaud you and I think you are amazing. I am talking to all the people that can't do all the things.
Right. But just be aware though of that because
Yes.
if you are doing all the things and you feel things are running great, that's awesome. But also check yourself. Check your family, check the health of all the areas in your life, not your own physical health, but the health of your children, and that relationship with your children and that relationship with your husband, that relationship with people around you, you know, and yeah, more power to you if you do feel very confident and totally fine doing all the things.
Yeah.
But also be aware of that, because I feel like that kind of can sneak up in different areas,
Yeah.
and who are you doing it for? Right.
Such
I
a good
think this continues to come back to me. It's like, I am not doing this for anyone else. I am doing this for me and my family, and I'm making memories for them.
Yeah.
And they're the important ones in my life right now, and that's where my priorities are different, you
Mhm.
know, and I'm not trying to put a show on for anyone else. If I don't want to send cards this year because, like you said, too exhausted, the time is just continuing to go faster and faster. And I just didn't have the time for it. Oh, well, you know? And the other thing you mentioned, about our finances, obviously situations change constantly. And this is something I said years ago. I mean, I think I've always said this, but especially when I would be teaching now as an adult, as a mom, you never know what someone is going through.
You don't. You
You
really don't.
never know. So just being kind and giving grace
Yeah.
because someone's situation, they could be putting on a smile for everyone in public,
Mhm.
but we really don't know what's going on behind the scenes in their life.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. And social media just makes, especially this time of year, everyone's posting. And listen, keep posting all your happy memories.
Yes,
I'm here for it. I'm posting mine as well. But that is about 10% of people's lives.
absolutely.
And this is a good boundary for yourself too, your social media boundary, right?
Hmm.
You know, you are struggling with some things in any season, not just the holidays, but we'll say for the holiday season. And you know that you're going to see happy family pictures all over your Facebook and your Instagram and all these things. What is your limit? Uh,
Yes, this is such a good point, Denise.
mhm.
And also knowing if there are people on your list that trigger you.
Yes. Oh, I
I've
have.
had to unfollow
Yes.
and remove things because not in a jealous way, I wasn't jealous about it, but it was like, I don't know, something about this rubs me the wrong way,
Yeah.
you know? And is it the fact that you're trying to put on a show for everyone else? Because you're right, it's 10% or less,
Or like,
right?
yeah. Or
Or less. You are
mhm.
not putting your entire day on social media, every single thought and moment and interaction with everyone else, right? And that one picture, doesn't mean anything about what's really going on. And if that one family or if that one influencer is making you feel, I need this, I need to be this way, highly suggest you remove that.
Yes.
If they are encouraging, if they are supportive, you're going to want to keep that there. But if you do feel icky, I think it's time to make those moves.
Yeah. And it's, I think something that I thought of like when you said that is, you know, that's kind of a trigger, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a big trigger, but it's a trigger. It's triggering something inside you where you feel icky and you're just not sure. And so is a perfect moment for you to be like, why is this triggering me? Like
Yes.
what is this? Right. And as you set boundaries, you start to learn more about yourself, right? And
Hmm.
so why does seeing that happy family trigger you?
Yeah.
What's
Such a good question.
what's that story? What's happening?
But sometimes you don't know, right? I just had a conversation with someone and I was like, I just don't know why
Mm,
this situation makes me feel this way. And the more I talked it out, or the more you journal it out, or the more you pray about it,
yes.
it's going to become visible to you. And
Yeah.
as soon as I started talking about it a little bit more, it instantly hit. And I was like, that right there is why. Is it a judgment thing? Do you feel you're being judged? You could not be, right?
Right.
I had a situation where I thought I was being judged. I thought someone was coming into my classroom when I was a Sunday school teacher and they were watching me and judging me and how I was interacting. No, I was
Mm-mm.
inspiring her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But like our brains and our minds can make us think crazy things.
Yep.
And sometimes we have to go with our gut and say, you know what, this person does make me feel a certain way, and I need to remove them from my life in whatever capacity that is
Yeah.
and set those boundaries. Or I need to kind of talk to them and see, is this really their intention? And maybe it's not.
Mhm. Yeah. And as you set boundaries, you get better at having conversations like that with people. You
Yes.
really do. Because it's just a matter of you're just trying to gain clarity.
Yep.
And then you can know, like, this person, I can be kind to them, but I don't have to invite them into my life.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
Vice versa. Or you can, love them. And if I'm in alignment with this person, I love them, we can be good friends or whatever that situation looks like. So again, it really does go back to like knowing yourself and knowing your priorities. As you get clearer and clearer on that, all these other things when it comes to boundaries really, really does start to fall into place for you.
Yeah. It
They
definitely
really do.
does.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it takes some work and it takes time. And you might be really good at it for a while, and then something comes up and you feel all the ick all over again. And that's
Right.
okay. Like, that's totally normal. But again, it's setting those practices and just leaning into that hard work of it.
Right. And I'm sure you can speak to that where oh, you're doing so great, right? You're setting boundaries and you feel like you are just crushing it. But then some situation can come up
Yes.
and it triggers you
Oh, yeah.
and it sets you back,
Yes.
right?
And there's so many, cute little graphics on the internet, right? We just kind of bashed the internet, but where it talks about your healing journey, right? And as you're healing, it's not a straight line. I mean, we want things to be straight. We want them to be concise. We want them to be clear. And healing isn't like that, right? Oftentimes you're going to take 5 steps forward and then something's going to happen. You're going to take 2 steps back. The 2 steps back is just as much healing as the 5 steps forward,
Hmm.
because then you're realizing you're given an opportunity to learn more about who you are.
Yes. And
And
put those strategies in practice, right? Am I saying that right?
yeah, no, but it does. It gives you an opportunity to put these strategies in place to maybe reprioritize if you need to, right? Like when you
Yeah.
set boundaries, who you are today probably isn't going to be who you are completely in 3 years. So reassess.
Hmm.
Sometimes something that works today might not work in a year.
Right.
That's okay because you're practicing. Like these things, they're never really over, but you just get better at them. And you're not
Right.
doing it all the time. But this is such a great time of year to talk about this because a lot of us are overextended, overcommitted, feel
Yes.
like we have FOMO over all the things,
Yep.
and it's very overwhelming. It's a beautiful time of year.
Yes.
Love it. It's so fun. And it's also so stressful
Right.
for so
Mm.
many of us.
It's so true.
And so to ease some of that stress is where boundaries come in.
Hmm.
It really is.
And some of those things are about setting limits, right?
Right.
Where we're going to say maybe it's to our kids and communicating to our kids
Yeah.
about, listen, we're going to do 2 holiday events, right? Or this month we have these things that are coming up. What are the things that you want to do the most, right? What is something that we definitely want to put on the calendar? And what's something that's like a B schedule? If we have the time, if we have the energy, if we have the finances, you
Mhm.
know, and communicating that with our family, with our spouses, right? Finances
Yeah.
and, setting those limits around the holidays, especially because it's so easy to go into a store and just grab things that we see, right? Oh, my kids would love this. We would love this. Well, what about your budget? Did you just blow your whole budget?
Your budget love this.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And gift giving is, are you going to gift give for everyone? Or are we going to have this conversation about, you know what, we're only going to buy for the kids? Or, you know what, mom and dad, we are going to take you out to dinner, or we're going to help fix this up. Or what is it that someone actually would want? Right. And what fits into your budget? What fits into your limits? Right. We're not saying, schedule events with every single person because that may be very exhausting. But
Right.
what is that limit? And it can go right into setting the limits for the holidays. How many holiday parties are there? How many family events are there? Right? Listen, we're going to go to your families on this day and we're going to go to my families on this day and we're going to rest, the next day,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah. And I liked how you said, we're going to go to this amount, whatever that is for each person individually. We're going to go to this amount of parties. We're going to do this amount of events. And that's it. I love
Mhm.
that because there's so many options all the time.
Yes.
And so setting those boundaries ahead of time, if someone invites you to something and you've reached your limit and you're tired and you just don't feel it, you can say, you know what? Thank you so much for this invitation. Like, we are just so worn out and we really need some time. Or maybe you're doing less because you're setting boundaries, or maybe you feel more energized. That's the thing, but you can always adjust things. But if you have the energy and it sounds like fun, then you can decide. But ahead of time, this is what I'm willing to commit to. And anything else that comes into my lap is optional.
Yes. And it's how we feel and being okay, even though we have a break. I know this is probably something I've worked on, but it's still something that comes up for me, right?
Hmm.
Being okay having that break in our schedule, right? If I have a free afternoon and someone invited me somewhere and I'm like, well, I have the time, but do I have the energy? Do I have the finances? Do I have whatever else I need to be able to make that happen. Right. And sometimes we force that. Sometimes we're like, yeah, we could do that. Of course we can. And that quick yes, you know, I mean, I remember years ago when I started listening to coaches for the business, right? And it was like, guard your yeses. And I was like, what the heck does that
Mm,
even mean? You know?
that's so good.
And I was like, what does that even mean? Like,
Oh,
I don't understand that. But it's so true.
yeah.
It's, saying no is a full sentence and you can totally just say no. And
Yes.
that's okay.
It's one of my favorite things to tell people is no is a full sentence. No.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need an explanation. No one needs to know because no one knows what you're totally going through.
Well, and that actually brings up a really good point too, is you don't have to explain yourself. Again, this I'm talking to my people pleasers here, right? Because a lot of times we feel like if we say no or we're setting a boundary, we have to explain why.
Hmm.
Well, I can't do that because no, it's okay.
Right.
You don't owe anyone an explanation.
Yep.
Understand your heart is in a good place by doing such a thing. But whatever the situation is, you don't need to extend more of your energy by explaining yourself.
Right. Exactly.
But I think sometimes
Exactly.
we especially as women, we just wrestle with that. It's like, well, but I said no, and maybe they should know that, I just have so many other things. And it's like, if they love you, you can tell them it's
Yeah.
okay. I'm not telling you to not explain yourself. I'm just telling you, you have permission to not
Yeah.
explain.
Exactly. I do. I feel like I always have to like say, oh my gosh, I have all these things going on, which is fine. Right. But even if they don't accept that, that's okay. That's what's happening in my
Yeah.
life right
And
now.
that's where you need to, and that's where I think it's such a healthy place to get to is to get to a place where I don't need to tell people why I can't do something. I can just say
Right.
no in a very loving and kind way. No, thank you.
Yep.
Maybe
Exactly.
next time, you know, let me know if you do another event like this or
Yeah.
but it's
And that's the other thing is like not having that FOMO around whatever it is, because it probably will happen again, right? However many times, like boundaries with our kids, right? Here's one example that I love. And then we'll start wrapping up because we could talk for hours. I know that Denise is like,
forever on this. Yeah.
but one of those boundaries that I love is with my kids, right? And saying, like, okay, we're at the park. And of course, our kids don't want to leave, right? They want to play all day. And I
Yes.
would give them the
Oh,
countdowns 5 minutes, 2 minutes. All right, 1 minute. All right, now do your last thing, right? So, number one, they've already had those expectations of what is coming, right? But then at the end, if they're like, oh, I just don't want to go, what I would always say is, listen, we can come back another time. This park is not going anywhere,
yes, that's
right?
mhm.
We can do this event another time. Or if we're in a different state, like, listen, I'm sure there's going to be other museums for us to visit, like allowing them to see that there is more for them. This is not it. This is not the end. This is not the last time that you're going to come to the park, you
Right.
know, allowing them to see that there is going to be more.
Yeah, that's so good.
So I feel like that's been helpful for us. And it sets those boundaries. It sets that opportunity for them to, one, know that this is time to go, but also know that this isn't the end. We're not going to be missing out on something,
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So, Denise, do you have any final things that you want to share before we kind of wrap up here?
We covered a lot of different ground. And I think a good wrapping up thought would be just to remember as you're doing this, especially if it's new for you, is to just make sure you're practicing self compassion,
Mm,
right? Just be really like gracious and kind to yourself as you're trying anything new, really, honestly,
yeah.
but especially setting boundaries. Because if it's foreign to you, if you've kind of allowed your time and your space to be infringed upon by saying yes to so many things and by not really stating clearly things that you want and need and prioritizing what's the most important for you, for your family, you might feel just like weird and guilty about
Mm,
certain things. And I totally understand that. I think we both do.
yeah.
So self compassion is so important here. And just have like a cute little phrase that you say to yourself, like, oh, you did such a good job. Or if you're familiar with Mel Robbins, she
Hmm.
does like the high five in the mirror. She encourages people to like high five themselves in the morning.
Love
And
that.
just as like a simple like, hey, like you're doing great. And it sounds kind of silly, but it's really helpful.
Yeah.
Be your own cheerleader. And,
Yes.
if you're married, talk to your spouse and say, hey, like every so often, can you tell me I'm doing a good job? It's good. You need to be able to do it for yourself as well. But reach out to have your spouse do it, have a good friend, your parent, whoever is closest to you. Just tell them, like, I'm trying this, like, and it's really icky. And I feel kind of goofy about it, but I want to do it.
Yeah.
You encourage me, like when something is weird, or just randomly tell me I'm awesome, because that will help you push through those kind of icky, awkward moments where you're
Yeah.
figuring all this out and you're starting to use your voice more.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And there's two things that kind of came to me when you said that was one, I was challenged in one of these fitness challenges that I did was to look at yourself in the mirror, like literally look in your eyeballs.
Yeah.
And I was like, how many times do we actually look at ourselves? Right? Like we can look at our appearance in the mirror, but like actually looking at ourselves and talking to ourselves and building ourselves up.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
then the other thing is when it comes to these boundaries, one, we're going to communicate them clearly, but two, don't feel like you have to do everything at one time. Don't feel like you
Yeah.
look at your calendar and say, you know what? I'm clearing everything out because everything's stressing me out.
So
You
true.
might feel like that, but it's like one small step, right? What is one thing that I can take off of my calendar that doesn't need to be there anymore? Is it a group that you have been going to? And think about it. Is that group, is that specific event filling you up?
Yes.
Or if you're attending, it could be a virtual meeting, right? We've now transitioned into a lot of virtual meetings. Is that virtual meeting one, using your time wisely?
Hmm.
And two, is it filling you up?
Yeah.
Or is it just wasting time, wasting your energy, and you get off of that call? I mean, if you can remove yourself from these calls, sometimes we have work calls and we just have to do it, right?
Don't just like quit. Don't just like quit all your work calls, but you actually have to do that to keep your job. Okay. We're not really telling you to do that.
Right. But some of those things that may be optional and that may not be filling your cup up, just be aware of those things and start noticing those things, noticing these events that I'm rushing out the door to get everyone out. Everyone's mad, everyone's upset. And we get to this event and we maybe have a good time, or maybe we didn't, and we then come home and we're all completely depleted. Well,
Yeah.
was that worth it? Or was there a better use of my time?
Yeah. That's really, really good. I like your start small. That's true. You
Yeah.
don't need to jump in with both feet into the deep end here. Like,
Right.
start where you're comfortable, but the key is to start.
Yes. And then, like I said, communicating clearly, allowing others to know how you're feeling, what you need in that moment, and being compassionate for yourselves. We talked about this, being compassionate for others. And remember to ask that question or, just kind of have this phrase in your head like, you never know what someone's going through. And just have that grace, have that compassion for someone, And here's something too that's kind of come up to me. It's not really about our boundaries here, but it's like if someone pops into your head, send them a message, reach out to them because there's probably a reason that they're popping into your head.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
just kind of, sometimes even getting quiet. I know I was like praying the other day and I was like, all right, Lord, what's the priority today? What do I need to do?
Oh, that's
And
good.
as I was sitting there praying, trying to, just pray and what's on my, all of the messages, all of the things that I needed to respond to kept coming in my head. And I was like, all right, Lord, I hear you loud and clear. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to answer all these messages, And sometimes just getting quiet. And then that's realizing like, where do I need to set this boundary? What is the priority right now?
Hmm.
And take that time for that.
That's awesome. I like that a lot. That's really, really good.
Good, good. Well, anything else, Denise, that you want to say before we head out?
No, I think we covered it. Thank you for letting me be on here. This was amazing and so fun. And I'm excited to put this out into the universe and let people listen. And I'm just so hopeful that it's helpful to those that listen.
Definitely. I think it definitely will be. And like I said, it's good for the
Mm.
holidays for sure, but it's really good for any time of the year, honestly. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have enjoyed today's episode, I encourage you to share this with a friend. Just hit that share button or grab the link, share it with a friend that could encourage and support them on their journey. And we know setting boundaries, it can be difficult to navigate. So know that we are here to support you on your journey. Denise, I would just like to know, where could everyone find you? So then that way, if they did want to reach out to you and start working with you or listen to your podcast, because all of this information is going to be in the show notes. But if you just want to tell everyone now, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so I'm Denise Marie on Facebook, and I'm Denise.lifecoach7 on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. And the podcast, From Rundown to Renewed, you'll see all of that on my personal page. We're working on getting those separate pages up by next year. So you'll see all the podcast stuff on my personal page for the time being. Stay tuned for all the pages for those things. But we do have a Facebook community group that we can share in the show notes as well. If people want to join that, we post the episodes in there first, so people get to see them before we post them on our social media, and you have like special access to the episodes first when you're in that group.
I love that. Yes, that would be great to share with everyone for sure. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. I also want to encourage our listeners, if you are joining us, be sure to check out the Educating Kids and Connecting Families Facebook group. And I want you to share how you can set boundaries this holiday season or anytime during the year, or reverse that. And like, what ways do you need support when it comes to setting your boundaries? So it could go either way, because maybe you are good at setting boundaries and you're like, you know what? I cut this out this year. Or, you know what? I'm really just getting started. This is new to me and I really need a little bit of help here. So Denise is in that group as well. So she can see those comments as well, or you can join her Facebook group and ask her as well. But let's get connected and let's build a supportive community for you and for the moms around the world. One final thing before we close, I just want to thank you guys all so much again for being here. And we are wrapping up the first year of podcasting for Educating Kids, Connecting Families. And I have some new and exciting things planned for you next year. So stay tuned for that. We've got a new name coming. We've got a new group coming. We have a new focus. It's still going to be for moms, for kids, for homeschool families, but we're so excited for that. So I would love to know what ways that I can support you. So be sure to join us in the Facebook group and just let us know, are there specific topics you're looking forward to hearing in 2025? Well, thank you again, Denise, so much for being here. We truly, truly loved having you. I loved having you. And you're just a wealth of information. Like I said, we could talk for hours, and we did. We talked for quite a while here, but I do feel like we shared a lot of good, valuable information. So thank you, Denise, so, so much.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you for listening to the Educating Kids and Connecting Families podcast. I appreciate your support and cherish each and every listener. If you found value in this episode, download it, share with a friend, or leave a review. If you're interested in even more resources for you, activities for your kids, and connection, I encourage you to join our exclusive community, Educating Kids and Connecting Families with Christine Furman on Facebook. You can find the link and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. I'm looking forward to connecting with you and supporting your family.